One day you'll understand that getting what you want isn't what's important. Making the most of what you have is.
In 2022, Ty West released his long-awaited A24 horror film that had been in the works since 2020. Sandwiched between Everything Everywhere All at Once and After Yang, X premiered on March 13th, 2022 at South by Southwest, and then on theaters on March 18th.
I'm nothing like you. You're a kidnapping, murdering sex fiend. I'm a fucking star!
There had been a lot of buzz about the movie, especially since Kid Cudi had produced it with Ty West and was starring in it, along with Jenna Ortega, Brittany Snow, Martin Henderson, Owen Campbell, but the star of the show was Mia Goth, who had been in a bunch of movies, including her first role in Lars von Trier's Nymphomaniac, the remake of Suspiria, and A Cure for Wellness. Almost always cast in smaller supporting roles, X became Mia Goth's breakout role.
You're the most beautiful woman I'd ever seen.
Not anymore.
Always.
Tell me I'm yours.
A slasher film about a desperate and sleazy group of 70s strippers and burnouts who aspire to make a porno film only to be hacked up and murdered by a sinister elderly couple whose shack they rented out to film in. Mia Goth played both Maxine Minx, a young runaway dancer who aspires to be a star, as well as the old woman Pearl who hacks everyone to death, in a horny, sex-crazed, violent frenzy. An honestly minuscule budget, $1 million, filmed not in rural Texas, but in New Zealand, brought back a return of $15 million at the box office. It's impossible not to see all the references to Texas Chainsaw Massacre here, one of the most iconic early 70s slasher films, made on an even smaller $80,000 budget in 1974. Even with inflation, that comes out to about $500,000 in today's money. The film was a bit of a grab bag, including the psycho-biddy genre, which we've talked about previously, horror films about crazy older women who have become violent and unstable, Psycho, which gets name-dropped, Boogie Nights, hardcore. Adding to the self-referential meta-nature of the film is a line where a young aspiring film director talks about how you can hide a low budget through avant-garde editing. And that definitely describes the stylistic nature of Ty West's films here. Immediately after filming X, Ty West wanted to keep working with Mia Goth, and so they decided to flesh out the backstory they had worked out for the Pearl character into a prequel filmed on exactly the same sets in New Zealand, using the crew from Avatar: The Way of Water as they were already in New Zealand and had already quarantined, and largely using New Zealand-based actors and actresses. Tonight's film, Pearl, a prequel to X, where a young Pearl lives with her German immigrant parents on the same farm in 1918.
I'm not staying on this farm! Nothing's gonna keep me here!
Filming in the wake of the pandemic in 2022, the film takes place during World War I and the Spanish flu epidemic, which gives it a very alienated, closed-off feeling.
I know what I've done. The bad things. Terrible, awful, murderous things. I regret them now, but I liked how they felt. I wish I didn't, but I did.
Rather than the more muted 1970s aesthetic tricks of X, which often make the film feel like you're watching it being filmed from a 1970s camera with faded film, grainy textures, and scratches. Pearl is colored as if it's Technicolor. Every color is incredibly saturated, just a bit off even, giving this world an unnatural, magical setting, and playing with the aspect the critics talked about with X, that Pearl as a character has incredible pathos and is even sympathetic at times. Gives her a backstory where she's both deeply miserable, living on this farm in the middle of nowhere, destabilized by a world conflict, followed by a massive pandemic that sees her husband march off to kill Germans.
Do people like you ever feel this way? I figure you don't. You seem so perfect all the time. The Lord must have been generous to you. He never answers any of my prayers. I don't know why. What did I do? What is wrong with me? Please just tell me so maybe I can get better. I don't want to end up like Mom, or I want to be dancing up on the screen like the pretty girls in the pictures.
And completely alienated from both family, who are German immigrants, as well as from her community living miles away. Her mother is stern, completely cold, and terrified that being German will have them treated like an enemy fifth column, and her father has been completely disabled by the flu and is now living the life of an invalid. Pearl also looks at the dark side of wanting fame, the ruthlessness of a woman trapped in a miserable place, and the connection between wanting to be loved, like a film star or a dancer, and the brutal psychopathic behavior when that isn't possible. giving the Pearl character both a trigger and a reason for her insane behavior in X. It was filmed for $4 million and was released in September 2022, just months after X was released, making $10 million at the box office.
All I really want is to be loved. I'm having such a hard time without it lately.